Good evening, everybody. I'm Marilyn McDonald, Chair of Conservation. With me tonight, I have members Eileen Prisco and Tiffany Sousa. Absence is Vice Chair Harry Bailey. We also have our agent Azu and Clerk Lisa Fields. I'll start by reading tonight's agenda. Under old business, we have a notice of intent, 1425 High Street, a notice of intent, Scotland Boulevard, and a notice of intent, South Street, map 125. Under new business, we have a notice of intent for Old Forest Street, map 99. Conservation business is Curve Street. Compliance, order of conditions and a review of minutes. Excuse me. For anybody who has not been to a conservation meeting before, how this goes is the applicant will come up and the applicant presents. After the applicant presents, at that time, the Conservation Commission, along with the agent, asks the applicant any questions. What the Conservation Commission does is we are governed by rules and regulations of the local and state bylaws. Our jurisdiction comes into play once they're in 100 feet of the buffer zone area. They have to meet the rules and regulations and along with the standard of project of performance of standards. The goal is to minimize and maximize any impact to the wetlands, and that's what we're here for. After that, we do invite the public to come up and ask any comments. We ask that you state your name and address. Most of all, just please, in this room, respect all. We're here to hear everybody, and we take everybody's concerns into play. We ask that you keep all questions to wetlands. That's what we're wetlands only. And keep the time to around 3 minutes so we keep the meeting going. If for some reason you feel that you weren't notified as a butter, that is to go to the assessor's office. We really get the same information as you do tonight. So if any concerns of not being notified, please see the assessor's office. That being said, we'll start with tonight's first opening is notice of intent of 1400, 1420, 1425 High Street, map 14, parcels 11, 12, 17, and 11, 12, and 17. And they have, I'm going to read into the record, request for continuation of public hearing. Dear Commissioners, on behalf of my client, Town of Bridgewater Water and Sewer Department, I request that you continue the public hearing for High Street Water Department treatment plan for the request for determination and read notice of intent. Project located at 14, 1420, 1425 High Street, map 14, parcels 11, 12, and 17, until June 13, 2019. Respectfully, Kate Chamberlain. Okay. Up, please. Next, under old business is Scotland Boulevard, map 59, lot 14.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Make a motion.
Need a motion
Yeah,
to
I'm sorry.
continue that hearing.
Chair would entertain a motion for continuance.
Motion to continue 1400, 1420, 1425 High Street, map 14, parcels 11, 12, and 17.
Chair in a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. I'll signify with ayes. All in favor? Aye. Against? Abstain? Okay, thank you. Sorry. Long day, as usual. I also ask that when somebody's up, that we keep any background noise. If you need to talk, you can gladly go outside. We have to be able to hear everybody. Thank you. Up is Scotland Boulevard under old business. Map 59, lot 14, Collins Engineering Group.
Good evening. My name's Dave Clennett from Collins Civil Engineering Group. I believe that our site walk was canceled.
The quorum site walk was
The
canceled.
quorum site walk was canceled. Has anybody had a chance to
We
walk
did
the site?
individual site walks. So myself and Harry was up there today. I have, excuse me again, sorry. I mean, if you guys need to discuss, please go outside. I can't with background noise. Sorry. I myself, thank you for very good flagging and, that was good. I had no issues. Everything was clear, that the 25, the boundaries were clear. So I had no issues. I believe Eileen.
I went out this afternoon.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I'm fine.
If you can, at this time, I'll refer to our agent, Azu.
Yeah, Madam Chair, positionally, everything looks good. But I believe they have to go to the planning board as well for site plan. I don't know. Have you guys made that
That is,
application?
we're gonna submit early next week.
Okay, so there's some extensive stormwater. They did pretty good in the upfront, but the drainage still needs to be looked at a little more closely. So I don't think I'm in a position to make a recommendation on that at this time. I think it's a lot of information. They did, everything is thoroughly done, but, we want to trust but verify.
Right, from what we could visually see, we were okay. So
Yeah.
I guess I would at that point,
No, I would agree with Azu. We're going to submit to planning board early next week. We won't be on the agenda for probably another 2 weeks. So we have plenty of time. We can continue it.
Yeah.
Azu some time to review everything and maybe even get some well, we won't get first comments from the planning board, but at least we'll have some comments from this board, hopefully.
Yes.
that sounds like the plan. Anybody in the audience at this time have a question or comment on the Scotland Boulevard filing? Okay, hearing none, the chair would entertain a motion to continue? But I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry, you would need to
yes.
put it, yeah, because this is the second time.
I would like to set motion to continue.
So what we need is you to either just send a written request to the the clerk, Lisa.
Yep, it'll be
So we
done
have that
tomorrow
in
morning.
writing.
Is that fine? Yep.
So at this point,
But do we have a date? Do we know? At least a month, right?
At least a month, yeah. I would say
sure.
we probably skip the next meeting and go
Yeah.
First meeting in June.
first meeting in June.
so the first meeting in June would be June 13th.
So I'll make a motion to continue June 13th, Scotland Boulevard, map 59, lot 14, Collins Engineering Group, at 6:30 PM.
Here in a second, any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all signify with ayes. All in favor? Aye. Against? Abstained? All right, let the record show unanimous for continuance to June 13th at 6 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Up next, we have under old business notice of intent, South Street, map 125, lot 89, Michael J. Koska. And Michael, Koska, before you present, let me just read into, for the record, there was an abutter's concern about a zoo who disclosed that his association with the filing. So I did meet with town manager today, Michael Dutton. We found no conflict of interest. This was many years ago, no financial interest and concerns. So certainly if anybody still has an issue, under Chapter 268, you can file a request with Michael Dutton at his office. But at this point, we found no concerns, and I did make sure that that was followed up with a higher level. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Michael Koska. Represent 2041 South Street Real Trust. Last time we met, I wanted to go out, view the site. I provided a plan that showed that we staked the center line of 5 to Station. The proposed crossing area, proposed replication. Just the replication was just southerly of this crossing area. There was turn by the flooding. It shows spot elevation. Further southerly 5 wetland. Back of lots ponding area. Drive. So I think that was the question that was posed at that time, and I guess the commission will do a site walk. Found.
Yeah, the group forum site walk was canceled, but we did do individual site walks. I was out there today, myself and Harry, and, while I acknowledge that we have an approved former wetland line up there that is active now when the tree forestry was there, this project still hasn't demonstrated that I am seeing that it doesn't have an impact. I mean, I clearly saw impacts out there today. So I don't, if you got to really tell me how you think this is meeting performance standards. I think we have a long way to go on this project, minimizing the impact to wetlands along with, abutters and stuff. So right now, and I'll have Azu also weigh in, there's a lot of concerns on this project that I have.
Well, we are crossing in the narrowest position that was shown previous wetland. We are replicating from 992 to 56, almost, at least 1.5 times. I know that there's some work to do. We are planning to approach the planning board, take drainage calculation from the planning side of stormwater doesn't apply here because it's a lot less. However, there are some drainage issues that need to be addressed. So we will be going to the planning board in June, and between now and then I do support the roadway with drainage calc for the planning board's review, and by that have a solid project. The only thing I can say in staking out where station, the cul-de-sac curves to the southwest, and I don't know if you went up in the back, but there was a lot of pine trees that were growing up, so that'll be behind the pine trees.
I got stuck, so I didn't go too much further after that.
You didn't drive it?
No, on foot. On foot.
Yeah.
Like always, pulling the ticks off. Again, I see impacts, so I believe this project has a while to go before I see a minimizing of the wetland issue. And at this point, Eileen, did you get out?
I get out there at 5. Yeah.
At this, well, any questions or comments? At this time, I'll refer to the agent, Azu, to weigh in also on this project.
So, Madam Chair, we do have a history with this location. You may recall a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, the previous owner had applied for wetlands review and evaluation by the commission without showing a specific project. At that time, they wanted to do some test pits, which they did on their request for determination of applicability. Now, the presentation to the commission at the time was that it would be for a Christmas tree farm. Now, under the farm provisions, the regulations are a little bit more relaxed because agriculture is indeed encouraged, and they will actually can go to the Department of Agriculture and get a yearly operational plan as well as a vegetation management plan approved at the time. So the commission reviewed it, but what was suspect in the terms of the procedure that the applicant at the time followed, not this present applicant, was to do test pits. And then the question at the time was, why would you do test pits and perk tests for growing Christmas trees? But be that as it may, it was allowed. And then shortly thereafter, without any planting of a single Christmas tree, the property was sold. And because let me back up here. When you review, the commission reviewed the request for determination and made a determination on the wetlands. If you go, as you enter the project to your right, there's quite an area that is very wet. And at the time, the commission unfortunately did not quite look at it very detailed because it focused, for good reason, at the area they were going to be doing the Christmas trees. And so I will submit that area, although you have reviewed and approved a wetland delineation, that area needs to be revisited to make sure that the wetlands are captured. Now, if that is not the case, the applicant has a right to require that you honor the wetlands that you have established because it's still valid. Well, in that case, I will submit to you that wetlands crossing, it's not a right. It is, you may, that is the regulation and the statute is very clear. The commission is not under any obligation to approve a wetlands crossing because you can demonstrate that the applicant has the ability to use the extensive portion of their upland area without impairing the wetlands. And the statute says the objective is to first of all, avoid, and clearly it can be avoided. Number two, where you cannot avoid, minimize. If you cannot minimize, then mitigate. So I don't think the project, this is my personal opinion, if you will, I don't think that the project has been designed to the level that that I would recommend to the commission, albeit I don't vote. But I don't think the project has been designed or thought of to the level that will merit an approval. Now, Mr. Koska is correct that under the Wetlands Protection Act, stormwater management is not required under the DEP guidelines. But it is not saying that it's not mandatory. Let me back up, rephrase that. DEP guidelines are not mandatory for subdivisions of 4 or less. But it's not saying that it's not required. It's saying that it's not mandatory. And where the length of the roadway that is being proposed is very significant. And the topography is not quite much of a topographic relief there. So they're going to require a lot of filling to regrade and make these septic systems work. So I think that they have to look at stormwater management, and the planning board rules and regulations do not relieve the applicant of the requirement to do stormwater management for 4 lots. It simply says, gives relaxation in terms of where you may place the stormwater management components, but it's still required. So I do believe that there's a lot of work to be done here before you may even entertain. Now, the applicant has the right, just so you know, by statute, they have the right to ask you to close the hearing, that if they choose to close the hearing tonight or continue it. That is their prerogative, whether they want to continue or to close the hearing. If they choose to close the hearing, then you have to act. The commission has to act based on information available before it. I will submit to you that the information available to you does not support approval of the project at this time. That's all I have.
Again, thank you for your weigh-in, but, like I said, I know there's an approved wetland line out there, but again, we have to minimize, we have to show that there's no impact, and I'm just not seeing that. So I was trying to look up also on the DEP website before it came, but I ran out of time. On a crossing, is there any other permits that are required with that through DEP, or is that just under local?
Well, DEP can require, depend on the size of the wetlands being displaced, DEP can require a water quality certification under the Federal Clean Water Act, Section 401.
All right, so before I entertain any comments or questions, again, I think we're a wee bit out there on this before we really entertain it.
Right. I realize that there's a long ways to go, not only from commission standpoint, but also. And the only thing that I can say is this, that the roadway is planned to be 2-lane, 8-foot wide. And that's a lot less stringent than 24-foot that is required for a subdivision road. So the pavement is down. We're crossing in the narrowest spot possible. And I will agree, I have done test pits. There is a fence with taller trees, pine trees. backside of that is an overgrown area where I guess this was a Greyhound type training or area. And in that particular area, there is sand. I did 4 tests per lot, 2 percolation tests out of the 4 in the presence of the Board of Health. And there is all the rates. And that would way up in the back. But to get way up back, really nothing. That roadway itself. So, I would like to, if what would agree, request a continuance. I believe I have a planning board meeting date June. I'm just waiting for a letter to notify the abutters. I've got all the envelopes. So probably someplace I think that would move everybody to get, especially get to where it needs to be as far as.
Before we entertain that, I am going to ask anybody in the audience with a question or comment on the South Street filing. You can approach and come up to the podium, state your name and address, and direct your questions towards me.
Robert Mellon, 1905 South Street, Bridgewater. I just wanted to take a look at this map here. This is the first time I've seen it. My question, I guess, you're talking about the property. Now, there's an existing house that was built recently. So has this property been split off of the other parcel yet?
I don't know if that's a wetland question.
Well, it's going to
Yes.
there's a question, there's a reason why I'm going there, that's why I wanted to know the answer.
Because we don't have knowledge of that.
Okay, so here's my issue. If that is not split off the existing property already, okay, and there was a house built there, there is a swale that originally was there that took the water and fed what is believed to be a vernal pool down below, okay? You guys never got out that far because you almost sunk out of sight, understandably. Knowing the property very well, having family that has lived in the address that I'm at now for 70 plus years, I understand what's out there. And in that swale, and one of the gentlemen back here has it on his phone, he actually has a good visual satellite photo of what that swale was and where the house is currently. So I guess my wetlands question is this: if there was a swale there and you guys went out and saw and recognized how wet it was and that there's all kinds of issues with impact, how is that house been built?
So what I can say about that house being built is it's out of our jurisdiction. So it never came before our filing because there is an approved wetland line out there that is past statutory. It had its appeal process. Nobody appealed it. This was during the forestry thing. So there is an approved wetland line. So that house didn't have to come through the conservation.
Okay,
So property lines, I'm not knowledge, we're not
Yeah.
privy to at this time. But what I can
Right.
tell you is there is an approved wetland line out there that was done several years back. I don't have the exact date. It's in effect. Can't go back now. It's past the statutory record, and nobody appealed it. So that is an active, approved wetland line. That house didn't go into a 100-foot jurisdiction, therefore it didn't come before this board. So I can't comment any further on that house. I can just tell you it wasn't in our jurisdiction. We didn't.
So I guess my
Now
question,
in our jurisdiction, what they're proposing, this is now what we're looking at.
I understand, but this is still part of that property and it has not been sold and the owner is the developer currently. Okay, so I think it's still a valid question to be asked here. And the problem is, I have this, is how did he do that under a forestry determination, that
I
line?
can't, again, that's not a wetland, like it's.
Well,
all can
I
type-
will answer this. I sat on this commission when this house was going through here, and I voted no on it because I knew the impact out in the wetlands line. I am on record for voting no. I was the only one to vote no on it because I knew what was out there, and I wanted the commission to go out and view that property because of the impact. I knew the impact. The GIS map does not dictate everything that is wet out there. It's only a conservative estimate. So it
We did-
really
we did.
bothers
And
me
you're
when
right.
I see
You were the
this.
one that did vote no on it, but it passed with the other votes. And nobody at that time appealed that determination. Therefore, when you go past the 10-day appeal, that becomes a valid line. we weren't looking at project, we were looking at forestry. Our focus was different, but that line was approved by conservation, with one opposing. But again, that went through with nobody appealing it. If there was concerns that should have been appealed and have DEP looking at it, that now is past our statutory regulations, so that line is, comes up for expiration and review again. So. that's
Thank you,
what
Chair.
happened there. You're welcome. Anybody else in the audience with a question or concern on the South Street filing? Okay, hearing none further, the chair would entertain at this time, if Michael Koska would choose to do so, for the applicant put in a written request for a continuance to the, we can determine the
June
date.
27th.
June 27th. The chair would entertain continuation on that.
Motion?
A motion, yes.
Motion to continue South Street map 125, lot 89, June 27th, 6:30 PM.
Hearing a second, any further discussion?
Nope.
Hearing none, we'll call to vote, all with ayes, all in favor? Aye. Against? Same? Let the record show for continuance to, what was that date again?
June 27th.
June 27th at 6:30 PM. Thank you for the right time.
I
All
forgot
right.
about that.
We are moving forward under new business. Notice of intent for for Old Forest Street, map 99, lot 67, Silver Engineering. Please approach.
Need help? Sure.
Oh, that's right, you gave me the notice first. Got such a nice little pack. What about the, do you have to be, for the, oh, he's usually very good about blowing it up. But hey, Lisa's catching on too. All right, so,
Plan?
yeah, the plan.
Yep.
While you do that, here are the abutter notifications, and I will read in. Legal notice, public hearing, Conservation Commission, Bridgewater, Massachusetts. In accordance with the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Town of Bridgewater Local Bylaw, the Bridgewater Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, May 9, 2019, at 6:30 PM in the Council Chambers Room located at the second floor of the Academy Building, 66 Central Square, Bridgewater, Mass, for review of notice of intent. The proposed work includes a single-family home, septic, and associated grading within the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands. The property is identified as on Assessors Map as Map 99, Lot 67, 0 Old Forest Street. All interested persons are encouraged to attend. Mr. Sylvia, now open.
Good evening.
Evening.
So the property Forest Street is an area of the road that isolated out of it that next to the back of the Redwing Drive, that's where it stops, and then it goes down and comes out here. House. So in the process, days prior to this, there were a couple of houses along the stretch. Once it was properties here in the that I gave you, and you can see it up here, stands a two-car garage. So a lot of times people come before you and they want to add a garage to the house. That's the back way of doing it. Basically, that garage is here, behind it and around it is all house. Left side of that garage. Side. Deck is on the
Eight.
31.8. Trying to do it in a way resource area. What we're asking for is the commission to issue an order of conditions for us to be able to build the home in the subject. So with that, I'd answer whatever questions. I mean, the site had a history before, but I don't think it's really germane to what's going on now. There's been a lot of support from the neighborhood. My client, he can speak to it tonight here. He's gone around and made sure that the neighbors were in sync with what's going on here. They actually have loved it since he's come to the neighborhood because although the business that was there before was a good business, it was a masonry business, it was Plaza Masonry. There's a lot more involved in terms of what was going on. His is kind of a quiet operation. Everything's inside the building, and so the neighborhood just loves the way he's taking care of the properties and so forth. So it's been a real plus for the neighborhood.
I'm just not familiar with it, to be honest, or any history of it, but it's looking pretty straightforward. I'll refer to a zoo too, but I'm not really.
Setback.
We have to go back to zoning board for that issue because technically the zoning bylaw says that you have to have 50 foot to the structure. So there will be the requirement for us to go to get that relief from the zoning board for that setback.
It was easy. No. Azul, what do you got?
Yeah, so
No, the building.
there was the person that owned it or owns it. I don't know if they have sold. If they have sold it plastic, had come before the commission a couple of times, and the commission denied it because of historic wetlands alterations and stuff. And Mr. Domenico, who sort of lived in the back, appealed the Board of Appeals decision.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it just was dragged on in court. But anyway, the court did remand it back to Conservation Commission with instruction to look at it based on conditions there, not necessarily the historic fill. So I believe Mr. Domenico has since moved on. That's why he's not here.
New Hampshire.
He has retired to Florida.
Okay, I thought you meant moved on.
Yeah, no. He's retired to Florida. And they're proposing, yes, they do need to go back to the zoning board because the 50-foot setback is a zoning setback, just like a front setback, side setback. So that requires a zoning relief. But I do think that the fact that it's an existing lot, what they're proposing, they may be shy of the 25-foot. So that is not a zoning. That is a regulation. That is your regulation that you have the authority to approve or not approve. But given the history and so on and so forth, I don't.
Yeah, no, I'm not seeing one either, especially with an existing there. Now, let me ask you, do they need to get zoning in order first? Or?
Well, it's a chicken or the egg. Which one? They go to the zoning. Zoning is going to ask them, what does conservation think?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they do need the commission's hopefully favorable act in order to go to zoning. That'll make the zoning process. And I wouldn't
Yeah,
have-
actually, that's the most significant item when we get to zoning board will be, well, how does the commission feel about it? If the commission has already looked at it and they were fine with it, then the zoning board is really just looking at their other parameters as it relates to
Yeah, I
granting
mean, I would be
relief.
fine with it if zoning's fine with it, so I guess we're a
Yeah.
chicken and egg thing here. So, any other comments?
The only question that I would raise to a zoo would be, it's been used for commercial all this time.
No, really.
No, but that's a zoning issue anyway.
No, I was thinking of the soils. Usually you do a 21E.
No, but that still will not be our purview.
Right.
Right, because that would be more of if they go to sell it. So it'll be in the interest of the buyer to make sure that they're getting.
Well, unless they don't have any idea that it's used for that.
Well, there was a garage.
I know what went on because I used to live in Red Wing.
Right,
Right,
and
you
I
know.
lived right
And you
down the
lived-
street.
right.
And they
And,
had a fencing company before they had the masonry.
Well, what it was Phillips, the house to the right.
Yeah.
He used to live there, and that two-car garage was where he used to operate his painting business from. Okay, and then later he actually bought that other building next door. I don't know if he built it, but he had that other building next door, the one that Ed owns now for his business now.
Oh, is it block or something?
What's that?
Is it block?
It's a block. The one to the right is block. That's the one where really the activity was in
Yeah,
terms of
okay.
that. That one had a couple of different users.
That's the
One
one
time
I
there was a
was
fence company in there.
Yeah, Smith.
Right? But that garage was really just like somebody had a customary home occupation where they just basically left their trailer and they went out and they painted and they went somewhere else to paint. So it wasn't like it was a hazardous
So it's
waste
it's going to be
issue.
for sale, it's not going to be.
Ed, do you want to speak to that? I mean,
Yeah, so
Can you just state your
My-
name and
yeah.
address for the record?
my name is Ed Warman, and I own the property at 559 Old Forest Street, as well as the residential lot next to 559. When I purchased the property 3 years ago, I bought it in two separate parcels. So from Mr. Plassey, I purchased the block building was under kind of a commercial umbrella, and the lot next door was under a residential umbrella. But I was concerned at the time that perhaps because he owned both and he was parking his vehicles on the other side, I just wanted to make sure that there were no issues with the residential lot. My thought in purchasing that lot is my son works in the business with me, and I'm a few years away from retirement, and I was hoping that that would be his home next to our business. So I was concerned, so I had a 21E done on the residential lot to make sure that they weren't doing, I know it was just masonry stuff, but I was still concerned that you don't know. So, and the 21E came back fine, there were no issues. So we purchased that. But in purchasing that lot, the neighbor next door said that Mr. Plassey was going through the permitting process for a house and he wasn't happy. So I asked him what his issues were, and he had a couple. He didn't like the location of the house. As it shows on the plan now, the house is on the left side of the lot. Mr. Plassey had the house on the right side of the lot, kind of crowding him. He didn't like that. Mr. Plassey wanted this 4-foot-high retaining wall and a septic system, and Mr. Wood didn't like that. So when I bought it, I terminated that plan, and I told Chris, my neighbor, I said, let's do what we need to do so when my son moves here eventually, we're all good neighbors. And so we moved the proposed house to the left side of the lot, which made Chris happy. And then I had Mr. Silva and his team work on getting us a septic system that would be environmentally sensitive as opposed to just kind of a big high wall. I think they have it now where it's about,
We have irrigation.
so it's only going to add about 1 foot to 1.5 feet, I think, at the most, of elevation change. So that made Chris happy. So I have 3 abutters, and I went around to each one, and they all think it's a fine idea if you want. They said they'd be happy to sign anything.
There's no abutters here?
No.
I've handed plans to
That's a
all
good
of them. And so they said, if you need us to sign anything, kind of go on record that we're in support of this, they would do that as well.
They would have their chance if they came tonight in support or
Okay.
disapproval, so no one's here. Yeah, so it sounds like to me you did your due diligence. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So
Thank
obviously, my next question would have been, is there anybody in the audience on this filing? No, I know you're not. So I don't have any issues
No, I'm
with it.
fine.
I mean, I just think, once they get their zoning thing, it will bounce off of each other. Azu?
Yeah, no, before the prior use actually was going to be approved anyway. So that's that they never followed through with the. That's why, if you remember,
You wore
last minute,
a Plassey down.
right, you gave them a certificate of compliance to get there was a work permit under that location, so we had to sign off. So that of the record. So, yes.
So basically, we could do an order of conditions pending zoning approval?
No, because it stands on its own.
Okay, all right.
If they don't get a zoning, then it doesn't go.
Okay, well then we'll be the first. I'm comfortable. So at this time, the chair would entertain a motion?
Yeah, motion to approve the plan.
we gotta
Oh, no, we're
close.
doing an intent, right?
To close the hearing.
I'm sorry,
Close the hearing.
motion to close the hearing.
All right, here in a second, any further discussion? Nope. Okay, we'll take a vote, we're signifying with ayes, all in favor? Aye. Against? Opposed? All right, let's record show this hearing was closed unanimously. All right, thank you, good luck in zoning.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll move right into conservation business. We have 0 Kerr Street, map 77, 78, 91, parcel 18, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 110, 1, 2, 3, 6, Duxborough Estate, 40B decision. Sorry, it's all good. No worries.
So,
Was there specials on here? Did we?
yeah, I have a draft order there, and basically the specials relate to the as-built, and also because if you look at Viva, when you did Viva was a building under the same ownership. This one here is being developed as a subdivision, so we were included a special that says this order of conditions does not relieve the applicant of the requirement to file notices of intent for the individual lots that are under your jurisdiction.
I'll read the attachment A then into the
Okay.
record. Duxborough Estates, 0 Curve Street, map. Any request for certificate of compliance, COC, shall be accompanied by 2 copies of certified topographic site as-built plan prepared by Massachusetts Registry Professional Land Surveyor. COC request shall be filed along with a written statement prepared by Massachusetts licensed professional civil engineer. The statement shall include a certification clause signed and stamped by the engineer noting compliance with approved plan of the order of conditions and any deviations from the approved plan. 2, prior to the start of any site work, the applicant and the contractor and any other authorized representatives of the applicant shall sign a written statement attesting to the fact that they have read the order of conditions and do agree to be bound by the conditions stated herein. Prior to the start of any site work, the applicant shall submit to the conservation a written signed stamped statement by Massachusetts Registered Professional Land Surveyor specifying that the erosion control barriers have been installed at the location shown on the approved record site plan. 4, the conditions of approval granted by the Bridgewater Zoning Board of Appeals for Chapter 40B applicant are incorporated herein by reference and are made part of these conditions. 5, the order of conditions does not authorize individual lot development for those lots which are within the 100-foot jurisdiction boundary of wetlands for which individual notices of intent are required to be filed. It fell off, okay. All right, and that's all I have, till 5, okay. So that's read into the record, so at this point, I would entertain a motion for order of conditions.
Approval of order of conditions? Okay, I'll make a motion for the approval of the order of conditions for 0 Curve Street, map 77, 78, 91, parcels 18, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 110, 1, 2, 3, 6, Duxborough. The attachment was just read.
Here in a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. Order of conditions, I'll signify with ayes. All in favor? Aye. Against? Abstained? Right. Order of conditions approved. The record show unanimously.
Amen.
There's no men.
Wow, that is awesome.
He just gave us a
Even the secretary.
So what I'm saying is, if Rebecca came in and made the presentation, we'd go faster.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you stayed home.
No women, bada bing, bada boom, as long as we're in compliance
All
here.
right, that's.
But thank you for the compliment.
No, I'm serious. It really
Tomorrow, after we process it. Yeah.
Oh, that goes.
But not DEP.
Oh, no, this is
Because the local bylaw does not apply. So it doesn't need to go to the town
That's
clerk.
I can't sign it.
If we had a local
So, yeah,
bylaw,
she was,
if it was not a 40B,
Abstained.
then we also have to file it with the town clerk. But it's all
So it'll have to be
strictly
Harry.
under the Wetlands Protection Act.
Me,
Once she's
then if we can vote on that.
because we're gonna type in, notarize
Very
it, sign, make copies.
All right, let's
So I
do
would
review
just
of
call the
meeting minutes.
office.
Yeah.
Not sign it?
We're going to hold on.
You can
Let's
sign
have a quick- Well, I think we have to, we need to see that.
No,
It's an order of, we have to, an order of condition. We
Oh,
only
we can't
closed
do
it.
it.
So I don't think we can do that, but let me just
Well,
double
I'll
check.
check with him
the
because
Zoom.
sometimes he just has,
But first, let's, I read the minutes, any,
I read the minutes.
okay, all right, I'll take a vote to review, to approve minutes from April 25th.
Motion to approve. Minutes.
Discussion, I'll signify with ayes on approval. Aye. That quick and easy. Azu, I have a question with the one that was presented before us on Mill Street. It's order of conditions for approval, but she's abstained, and I don't have Harry here tonight. Do we have to?
no, she can sign it, she did, yeah,
She
I can
abstained.
sign it?
yeah.
Even if I
Yeah,
abstain?
by the rule of necessity,
Okay.
you're going past more than 21 days. So record will show that she is voting under the rule of necessity, because two of you can act on an,
But that,
Yeah, they
that's,
approved it. It's right here. In the minutes.
yeah.
You just read it.
I know we closed it, but I can't remember.
No, we made a motion to approve it. I just read it. Harry and her
That's
approved
right.
it.
All right, so we already made the motion to
Tiffany,
approve, so
excuse
we'll
me, not
just,
her.
we can just sign.
Yeah. So it's okay for me to sign it even though I abstained. That's fine with me.
Yeah,
Record can show
because we'll be more than the 21 days, so the
The
no,
record show that because there wasn't.
As long
Harry-
as I didn't vote on it,
right,
I guess.
right, you didn't vote on it.
That's right, we did vote on it that night. It's
We
all
did.
coming back to me now.
Right in this little packet right here that we just approved to review.
Please, sign it,
I
right?
just,
Oh, that's right. There you go, kid. All right, so I don't believe, just quickly, I'm going to add on to this. I am going to be following up with Laurie King from Board of Health. You weren't here, but our former chair, beloved Dick, passed a couple of years ago. We are going to get a bench, and we're going to have that engraved. So I will be following up with her probably tomorrow. We'll finalize, get a couple of benches that we're looking at will purchase that one, okay? So I just want to let you know that that's in the works.
That's important.
Yep.
He
have
served,
it-
he served on the commission for 20.
I know we did.
Wow.
I know. Yep,
That's a long time.
always love him. Great mentor. Be fair.
Madam Chair, last, just to keep the commission apprised, they are working on right now of getting, they're still in the process, just so you're aware of it as a commission, that the town will look into hire an environmental planner. So, because they think I'm doing too much for them, can't properly focus on being town engineer. So,
That doesn't mean we lose you on conservation, does it?
no, you will get comments from me, but not, you will have a person that is acting as the agent and by the title of environmental.
Wow.
It's good to lessen up your stuff, but, actually, that reminds me, is there, read this to the commission. Hi, Lisa. Kimberly was hoping to set up some meeting times with members of the Conservation Commission to discuss future department plans. That might be part of it. Would be able to ask members if their specific day of the week or time of the day that would be best for them, so I can try to get these on the calendars. Thank you, Katie DiSorenzo. So the Associate Town Manager, Kimberly, wants to meet individually with us, correct? So I would advise at this time that through all of our different schedules, we take a look and then email them when you could meet her individually.
Oh, so we're done, we're all doing it in separately.
She requested separately. Yeah, so I would just email her when you have availability to meet. Okay.
Can you forward that to our email?
Yeah,
that
can
letter?
you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
just
it
forward it.
reminds me. Because otherwise I'll walk out the door and that's it.
Yep, I know that feeling. And then I would entertain a motion to
Motion to close.
To adjourn.
Adjourn, excuse me.